Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sume McPhail, the founder and CEO of Wequal School, a project-based, self-directed virtual learning platform. Our students present their projects every Saturday at 2 p.m. For more information, please go to wequal.school. This week's demo day is on 3D printing, and I'll just kick it off to Isla to talk about our 3D printing virtual classroom.
Hello, my name is Isla and I am 9 years old. Today I will be talking about the 3D printing virtual classroom. In the 3D printing virtual classroom, there is a section called resources. For example, in resources, there is Wequal Lives. Some of the Wequal Lives talk about 3D printing. In some of the Wequal Lives, we talk about 3D printing. Once you've gotten your first 3D printer, you can move on to thinking about project ideas. In project ideas, you can do research, build, and design. For projects, some of them are called different 3D printers, 3D printing filaments, and additive manufacturing, and etc. Some of which my sister will be presenting on this demo day. For the Wequal store, Wequal store is where people can sell things that they have 3D printed. And for example, some students at Wequal School are selling gifts to other people. Now let's kick it off to Sume, who is presenting her 4 projects.
So the first project I will be talking about is I wrote an article on Intro to Additive Manufacturing, also known as 3D printing. So basically what 3D printing is it's a process of manufacturing where 3D printers build things layer by layer, which is very different than the traditional injection molding and subtractive manufacturing. One of the things is that it only uses the material that it needs because it just builds it layer by layer and doesn't need a mold or doesn't need to chip things off and things like that. So one of the reasons why 3D printing is so important is because it provides this very new way of manufacturing that isn't necessarily the best for mass producing things, but making things customized. And in today's economy, there are a lot of things that are starting to be customized. Customized products are starting to be valued more. And so additive manufacturing provides a really easy way to do that. And it's also very important for small businesses who may not have the capital to purchase a factory but still want to sell hardware. So there are some costs and benefits of 3D printing. Some of the costs is that you might not be able to make as many things as fast, but the benefit is that you can customize it really easily just by changing the design and reprinting it. It can just be really it can be customized very easily just based on what your customer wants. And so that is intro to additive manufacturing and what it is. So my next article is on different 3D printers. There are a lot of different 3D printers, and they basically all do the same thing, which is just print things layer by layer. But there are different add-ons and costs and weaknesses for every single one. One of the things is that you can look at the special features it has. One of them is like automatic bed leveling, which makes it so that there's the bed, which is where things are printed on, and you need to make sure that it's at the right height, because if it's too high, then your nozzle will scrape along it and it won't be able to print. And if it's too low, then the nozzle won't have anything to print on and it'll just be like a big mess of filament. So automatic bed leveling is just one example, and you can think about, well, is this something, am I comfortable with just leveling it myself? Am I going to be printing a lot? Is this going to actually take out a lot of time in my day? Or, and just thinking about the costs and benefits of everything. So there are different 3D printers that might be for different scenarios. If you're a small business and you'll be printing a lot of things, then you might not, then you might want to have more of like an industrial one. And I would recommend, for finding a 3D printer, there are a lot of great ones. You can just go on Amazon. I have the Ender 3 and the JG Aurora A5S. But it's also depends. There's a very wide range of costs. The way I found out about these is there's a YouTube channel, RC Lifeon, which is great, and he does a lot of comparing different 3D printers that he has, and he also has like the cost and different specs about it. So I definitely recommend checking that out. So the last article I have to present is 3D printing filaments, and a lot of people and one of the things that you do need to know in 3D printing is the filaments, and the reason why is because different filaments have different temperatures, and if you print one at the wrong temperature, it could either get like really liquidy and have like and not be able to print and stack up a lot and sag, or if it's a too low temperature, it'll just get clogged in the nozzle, and that could cause you a lot of issues when you're printing. So you need to make sure you know about the different temperatures based on which filament you have, but it's not necessarily all that important to know. Like there's PLA, which is the most broadly used um, uh, filament because it's just easy to print with, and it stands for polylactic acid, but you don't necessarily need to know that. You just need to know, okay, PLA prints at this temperature, my printer can handle that, so I can use it. And so that's also very important in your software when you're setting up the print, that you make sure that you put in the right filament that you're using. And most of the time, you won't need to memorize the temperatures. You'll just have to say that you're printing with PLA, and it'll automatically set it to that. So the two probably most known and used, although PLA is more widely used in ABS, is PLA and ABS. PLA is really easy to print with. Pretty much every single 3D printer you'll be able to print with PLA, but it's pretty brittle, and ABS is more strong, but it lets out a smell when you're printing with it. So you might not want to have that unless you have an enclosure with a filter. The other ones are TPE, TPU, and TPC, and those are the types of filaments that are flexible. So if you're making like a phone case, then you might want to use it. And if you want something that's just kind of more flexible that you can bend around, that's not something that you would want to use for PLA, but those are the types that you can use. And one of the things is that those filaments probably won't be compatible with every single 3D printer, so you have to make sure that that's within your temperature range. So the last filaments are kind of wood and metal filaments. There are different types. With wood, you can't just use wood because it has to melt or become in kind of a liquid form, at least, and so it's just filaments with wood fibers in it, and it's basically, there's no really like benefit of it. It just, if you want something to look like wood, then you can use that. And there's liquid ones, and you can actually get metal 3D printers. I think they're pretty expensive. But basically you're printing with actual metal. But there's also filaments you can get that's just plastic that looks like metal. And so the last thing is, I have a video where I tried to make a 3D printed electric mixer. And so basically this is kind of like an example project, because I think a lot of the Weequel School students got 3D printers, but either wasn't able to get it up in time or wasn't able to make their projects in time. But it's thinking about how you can use 3D printing and showing the process of 3D printing something, or maybe just talking about 3D printing in a video. So this is just an example project that they could potentially use to give them ideas. In this video, we're going to be trying to make a hand mixer out of this thing that spins and 3D print a whisk top and a whisk handle, not a whisk handle, a handle to try to make a functional hand mixer that doesn't explode. Okay, so I printed this, and this is basically where I'm gonna try to make the whisk, and I'm gonna take the filament and then just loop it to make a whisk. This is not my design. I found all the stuff except the handle on Thingiverse. We have made I think a very successful, oh shoot. So I think that this is a very successful whisk in my eyes, but now we need to try to connect it to the spinny thing, which is gonna be the hard part. So I made the whisk and I just tried to make this like just pretty sound and just attached with some hot glue, but now I'm out of hot glue. So I'm gonna try to attach this to the bottom of this with a 3D pen. Okay, so the melted plastic from the 3D pen just wasn't sticking, and so we're going to plan B, which is duct tape. So we have a bit of a problem. So I was able to connect this, like it's not falling off or anything, but look. It's a little bit to one side, so when it swings around, it's a little bit to one side where I want it to be centered. Okay, so I think I got this the best I can. We're just printing the handle, and then we're just gonna try to attach that and see if we can actually whisk something. Okay, so the handle finished printing, and so it fits perfectly onto this bottom part. And so that's one of the really great things about 3D printing is you can just design your own things to just for your needs. And so we're just gonna see if this actually works and try to whisk some eggs. It's getting really fast, and then when I put it in, it just immediately stops. If you ask me, is this successful? It was whisked. It sort of works, I guess. You kind of have to hold it up and then let it spin and get really, really fast, and then put it in. Be done testing the electric whisk after testing the eggs, after testing the flour, and I thought, well, it doesn't really have very many practical use cases. But then, so I made this, and it's just basically a drink, and in order to make it all fancy like an espresso, you basically have to take a regular whisk and then go like this for ridiculous amounts of time. Why not just test the electric whisk? So I did, and it actually works perfectly to make these like fancy bubbles. So if you want to make your own just electric hand mixer thingy, doesn't take a lot of time-ish, and it doesn't take a lot of money, and so the takeaway is you can make fancy bubbles. Okay, so now we are going to open it up for a question answer session, and if you would like, you can post questions right on Facebook Live, and then we'll try to hit as many of them as we can. So, question for me. What are some issues you ran into when setting up and running your 3D printer? How do you resolve these problems? Oh gosh. Well, I mean, for my Ender 3, the first 3D printer I got, it was so annoying because I kept putting in the wrong piece. Like there's these two side pieces, and so I flip them, and you need to have the right one on the right side because there's like different holes where screws go, and you need to make sure that there's a correct one on the correct side. So I had to take apart the entire 3D printer and re-put it back together. So that took me like 4 hours, and I was expecting it to take like 30 minutes. So I would just recommend make sure you're putting in the right piece, because if you don't, then you might have to end up like taking apart everything and then having to put it back together. But I think it just it was kind of hard for me because I had never really done anything with a 3D printer before. That was my first one. One of the things is that the Ender 3 comes with 24 vague steps to put together an entire 3D printer, and I was like, okay, how am I supposed to do this? So I just watched a YouTube video, but the problem was I put in the YouTube video the guy put in the wrong wires. So when it comes to wiring your 3D printer, you don't want the X-axis wires to be put into the Y-axis slots. So just in terms of wires, make sure you stick to the instructions for those ones. I think there are just a lot of problems you can run into. It's just it's not that complicated to put together, but it's I mean it's relatively it's not too complicated, but you can run into a lot of problems if you don't do things incorrectly. For example, for my JG Aurora A5S, I wasn't able to save things to my SD card. It was like I'm not able to, and it was really and I thought there was something wrong with my SD card, which is the card where your prints are saved. But it actually wasn't. It was settings on my computer. And I needed to change the settings so that it actually was able to save. So it wasn't. So I was about to like buy a whole new SD card and stuff. But I would say, I mean, just try Googling it. That's what I did, and try. And not everything's gonna work, and but yeah, play around with things. And don't assume that you know what the problem is. Because I thought the problem was the SD card, but no, it was the settings on my computer. So, question for Isla: where can we find the 3D printing virtual classroom? Is it one of the virtual classrooms at Weequel School?
Yes, it is one of the virtual classrooms at Weequel School. You can just go to weequel.school and click on classrooms, and then if you scroll down, there's 3D printing.
Yeah, and there are a lot of other classrooms that you can check out. We have Flutter Apps Life School. Not all of them are built yet, but yeah, it's also, if you have a recommendation for a classroom, then feel free to maybe comment it in the Facebook, or send us an email, or contact us through the website. Okay, what's the next question? Where can we find Weequel Store? We are going to set it up within the Weequel Combinator at weequel.com. We have Weequel Combinator, which is it's where basically we fund startups. If someone wants to pitch their startup to us, and they are welcome to. We haven't set it up yet, but we will. Question for me: we are still working on our 3D printing projects. Will you have another demo day on this topic so we can present our finished project? Yes, definitely. We had a lot of people who wanted to present, but like someone got a 3D printer, wasn't able to put it together, returned it, bought a different one, and still had to put it together. You know, it's just with some of these, it's kind of unexpected because you can just run into a lot of issues. So yes, we will definitely have another one for people to present their projects. Okay. Question: what are the products you have printed so far with your 3D printers? A bunch of things. Mostly just stuff from Thingiverse. I mean, one of the things that I would definitely recommend for people who just started with 3D printing is to go on one of these websites where people post their 3D printed designs, and some of these are like super detailed. It was kind of hilarious. There was one where like someone 3D modeled a Bernie with his mittens sitting in that chair, and I went on Thingiverse and I was just like, oh my gosh, these people. And yeah, they like their designs of everything. So I would definitely take a look at that to try to find. Oh yeah. We have this dinosaur. This is what I 3D printed. I was gonna print it for Isla's birthday party, but then COVID was still going on, so we couldn't really have people over. But it was supposed to be a scavenger hunt, and one of the hints was gonna be inside the dinosaur's mouth. But now it's just a an odd ornament, I guess, for our week live.
Maybe
so,
for next birthday.
Yeah. And so it's just there's just all kinds of stuff, and it really does give you a lot of inspiration. You're just like, okay, I wanna print this, but I wanna like put my name on it, or I wanna like make something different about it, and then you can try to play around and design, and it's just really cool to see what these people can do, because some people are just they're just crazy good at designing. It's amazing. Um, let's see. What softwares do you use to design your 3D product? Any advice on starting with software? Well, I think software is there for designing. I use Fusion 360, which is just how you design things, which is one of the uh, apps that you can use to design. It does have a bit of a learning curve. I'm still not all that great at it. I can design some simple things, but there's a lot of resources on YouTube to get you started with learning Fusion 360. So that's one thing I would recommend, especially since it's free. It is a bit hard to get free though. You have to use it for personal use if you're using it for like business use. If you want to sell something, then you do have to pay for it. But if you're just using it for personal use, then you don't have to pay anything. Um, and for like there's a it's like a compiler. It's basically taking designs and then turning it into G code, which is basically the code programming language that 3D printers read in order to know what to print. Those there's different softwares for that. I just use Cura. It's free, and you just put in your 3D printer, you put in your design, and then it'll give you a G code file, which you can put on an SD card and put inside your 3D printer. One of the things that I think is really cool is that you can actually edit the G code, so you can learn how to code in G code. I haven't tried doing that yet, but it seems really cool. Like people are like making their 3D printers dance and stuff. It's which is really cool. So
How do they make their 3D printers?
by learning the programming language which is G code, that tells a 3D printer what to do. So it's really cool.
That's cool.
Is it true that scientists have figured out how to 3D print organs? What else do you know about 3D bioprinting? Well, so bioprinting, I don't actually know that much about it, but I do definitely know it's really cool how people are using 3D bioprinting.
Yeah. They like print tissue.
Yeah, so I think this could be a really big medical breakthrough because you can use tissues to like test drugs, or I mean I think even all the way back in, I forgot the exact date, but maybe 2013, 2015. I forgot which year, but it wasn't all that recent. They 3D printed a bladder and put it inside a human, and it worked, and it's really cool how they can how you can do that, but I don't actually really know all that much about how it works. um but I definitely do think that it is a very big medical breakthrough, and thinking about like what are the possibilities of using something like this. Also, one thing I just wanted to mention before we wrap it up, I also wrote two other articles, Additive Manufacturing 102 and 103, which you can check out on my profile at wequil.school, wequil.school. And it basically covers like what industries 3D printing is being used today, and is kind of already taking over because it just is so obviously makes sense in that industry. So for example, like hearing aids are already pretty much all made by 3D printers because everybody's ear is shaped different. You don't want to cram someone else's shaped ear inside of your ear. So aerospace is also one because in 3D printers there's a hollow kind of lattice pattern that basically makes it so that it's hollow, but it has all these structures inside. You can't do that using anything else other than 3D printing, which makes it so that you can make things that are lighter but just as strong. So that's starting to be used in aerospace. But there's you kind of do have to think about, is this industry actually going to be going to benefit from 3D printing, or will the kind of the more traditional factory mass producing way make more sense? So I think that's something really cool to think about, is like which industries is this going to be used in. So next week's demo day is Life School. If you want to check out the other demo days, you can go to the Wequil School YouTube channel, and we have a playlist with all the past demo days. So yeah, and to see all the projects that we talked about in the virtual classrooms, you can go to our website, wequil.school. Okay. Thank you everybody for watching.
Bye.
Bye.